So it was the late 1950s. She was a widow, and she had 3 small children. She was barely making ends meet, and she was already feeling like she was such an outcast and an awkward strain on society. So she welcomed comfort and reprieve in the arms of her first and greatest love. Not too far into that relationship, she found herself in an unplanned pregnancy. Now, she had been raised in church. She knew God. She knew she was supposed to live within His precepts. But she had failed miserably. She felt guilty. She felt ashamed. How could she do this? How could she allow this to happen? What was she going to do now? She felt even more isolated and alone than she ever had. Fearing disappointing her parents, the ridicule of the church, and the community, and then the biggest thing of all, that big challenge. What was she going to do? She was already struggling to raise the 3 sons that she had. This was the 50s, after all. Women didn't have babies out of wedlock. And the last thing she wanted is for him to feel trapped. Although abortion was illegal in most states there, at that time, there were underground practices available to women. So her friend had given her the name of a doctor who would probably be willing to help her. She reached out, and for a pretty hefty fee, he would perform the surgery. And she, much against her convictions, made the appointment. But first, she had to tell him. Her trusted friend was going to provide the child care for a couple of days that she needed, but she had to have transportation, and she had to have some money. That night, as she shared the news with him, he wept like a baby, and he begged her for her forgiveness, because he had compromised her integrity and her reputation, and he had landed her in such a precarious place. But he declared, "My child will not be fatherless, and neither will your boys. I could never stand by and let you make a decision that could affect your life in such a tragic way. I'll stand for you. I'll stand for your boys, and I'm going to stand for your unborn and my unborn baby. I will not allow them to be fatherless." The enemy, he tried to steal a generation, but he lost. They married soon after that, and being sensitive to the potential shame that she would carry, he insisted that they move to another state. Life was going really well, and they were really happy. He was such a good man, and he was taking care of this family that he now called his own. Then one day, she called him at work, and she said, "You got to come home right away." At the hospital, the doctor explained that she had gone into labor prematurely due to some complications. The bottom line is this: your wife or your baby. He was in great distress, but he said, "My wife. I don't want to lose the baby, but my wife." While waiting, he just began to question God like everybody would. He said, "God, why would you have put us through all this just to lose this child? Why, God?" And instantly in his head, he reconciled, and he said, "God didn't do this. We did it. And God is a grace of mercy." And he prayed, and he said, "Lord, will you please let this baby live?" Well, the doctor said of that baby that she was a strong one. "She's a fighter," he said. Most people still say that about me today. I am in the battle, fighting for life. The enemy, he tried to steal a generation, but he lost. He lost big time. Years later, God allowed me to marry a wonderful man whose mom was widowed when he was very young.